Okay, so today we're diving into something pretty intense. A listener wrote in sharing her story, and it's really about trust, betrayal, really tough financial times, and ultimately, a journey of finding strength.
Yeah, it's a powerful story.
She titled it "From Love and Betrayal to Survival and Strength," and we're gonna kind of use this deep dive to unpack it all—the emotional stuff, the money part of it, and the psychology of it all. See what we can learn, for you, the listener.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a brave story to share. And I think what we really want to try to do is pull apart what happened. Like that initial trust, those moments where things changed, and then really that whole path towards healing.
Yeah, and that's a good place to start, I think, right at the beginning. So you meet a taxi driver, and pretty quickly it seems like a relationship starts to form, and you felt, at least at the time, real trust and love, right?
And it's that sense of security that I find really interesting right from the start. That feeling of safety and connection. Because often that's what, future decisions get based on. And in your case, you started to involve him in your finances, right?
And that's what leads us to the inheritance, the money you received after your dad passed away, um, and you're making plans for your new home. This is a huge thing, a new home, a symbol of the future, you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's when you shared this pretty personal financial info. It really shows how deep that trust was.
And he didn't waste any time, did he? You mentioned the inheritance, and right away he suggests using, what was it, 15,000 Rand to fix his car. Like, that's an investment in our future kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a classic move, honestly, in these situations. You present something you need as something that's going to benefit the relationship, you know? And it seems like you were motivated by love and trust, that belief in your shared future.
Right, but then things changed, didn't they? After he got that money, it's like a switch flip. You weren't talking as much. When you did hear from him, it was usually him asking for more money.
Yeah, that sudden change, that's a big red flag. Makes you wonder if his motives changed. But you kept supporting him financially, which shows just how strong that initial connection was. And that hope, right? You were still hoping for that future you'd imagined to get her.
You really do hold on to hope, even when things start looking bad. And you weren't completely alone in noticing it, were you? You had a friend who saw what was happening and warned you, right? They thought you might be getting taken advantage of.
It's so important to listen to those voices. Those people on the outside, friends and family, they can often see things more clearly. And then you even confronted him about it, but he just brushed it off, didn't he? Like he was minimizing your concerns. It's a way to keep control, a classic manipulative tactic.
And you still held on to hope, even with all those red flags. And then comes another turning point, I guess you could call it, when you find out you're pregnant.
Wow, that's a moment where you're incredibly vulnerable. And for a lot of people, it brings up even more hope for the relationship. But he disappeared. No calls, no nothing, leaving you to deal with it all alone.
It's hard to imagine the shock, emotionally, financially. Being a single parent wasn't part of the plan. And then on top of that, the news about your health, the HIV diagnosis.
It just adds another level of trauma to everything. It's not just the emotion, betrayal, and the money. It's this life-altering diagnosis. And it's directly connected to him. It really shows the devastating impact of these kinds of relationships.
And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, you find out he's dead. You mentioned feeling a sense of closure. That must have been so complicated to process.
Yeah, it's not about being happy he's gone or feeling like justice was served or anything. It's more about the end of the stress, the financial drain. His death meant that chapter was finally over. But like you said, the healing that goes on, that's a whole other journey.
Absolutely. So let's dig into those big themes that we're seeing here. The biggest one, I think, is that broken trust. You put so much into this relationship, your heart, your money, and he just throws it all away.
That trust was everything. It's like the foundation of the relationship. And when it's shattered, it affects everything, how you see yourself, how you see other people. And then there's the manipulation. He wasn't just looking out for himself. He was controlling you, taking what he could get. He didn't care about you. It's about power.
And we have to talk about the HIV diagnosis. It adds this whole other layer of pain, not just the physical health aspect, but the emotional weight of it, the stigma. And it's tied to this betrayal. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. But through it all, you're resilient. I mean, to face pregnancy and a serious diagnosis all alone, that takes incredible strength. You kept going even when it would have been easier to just give up.
That's what really struck me too. And then there's this idea of closure, right? His death brought an end to things in a way, but like you said, real healing is internal. It's about working through those emotions and moving on.
Exactly. It's about separating those outside events from what's happening inside you. His death closed one chapter, but the emotional recovery, the rebuilding trust, that's something you have to do for yourself.
Okay, so let's think about the impact of all this, the broken trust. That makes it hard to open up to people, right? To be vulnerable again. How do you move on from that?
Yeah, it makes sense to be more guarded, maybe even a little suspicious of people. You've been hurt. It's natural. It takes time and effort to rebuild that trust. And then there's the money. Losing a chunk of your inheritance like that, that's got to be tough. It can shake your sense of security, but you're rebuilding, and that shows real strength.
And raising a kid by yourself after all of this, that's hard enough as it is. But with the pain and anger you must be feeling, that's incredible. You're putting your child first? That's emotional maturity right there.
It really is. It says a lot about your commitment to your child. And then there's the HIV diagnosis, accepting that, dealing with the health issues, the potential stigma. That takes courage, and you're doing it.
Your story, it's full of lessons. It shows us that trust has to be earned. It's not just given freely. You have to see consistent actions, honesty, real transparency. And it's so easy to get caught up in emotions, to forget about protecting yourself financially.
That's such a good point. Love and trust are important, sure, but we can't let them blind us to those warning signs, especially when it comes to money. It's about open communication, giving and taking, equally, emotionally and financially, and having boundaries. Your story shows what can happen when those boundaries are weak. Financial independence is huge. It gives you strength. It protects you from being manipulated.
And then there's karma and healing. It's not always about what happens on the outside. Yeah, his death might feel like some kind of resolution, but the real healing, that's an inside job. It's accepting what happened, working through the pain, and choosing to move on.
You got it. And part of that process might involve forgiveness. Not saying what he did was okay, but letting go of the resentment. It's not about him, it's about you. Holding on to anchor hurts you more than it hurts him. Accepting the past, focusing on the good things, that's how you find peace.
So as you move forward, what are some things that might help? I'm thinking therapy could be really beneficial. It can help you process all the trauma and learn to try it again in a healthy way.
Yeah, I totally agree. Trauma like this, it leaves scars. Therapy gives you the tools to deal with those wounds and build that trust back up in yourself and in others. And practically speaking, keep focusing on your finances. Building that security will make you feel stronger, more in control.
And with your health situation, taking care of yourself is crucial. Make sure you're getting the medical care you need, and don't be afraid to reach out for support. It's all about long-term well-being.
Right? Being proactive with your health, it gives you a sense of power. It supports you physically and emotionally. And as you move on, remember to build up your confidence. Set healthy boundaries in your relationships. Know your worth. That comes from inside you, from your strength and resilience, not from anyone else.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what really stands out to me is your strength. You went through so much betrayal and hardship, but you never gave up. You built a life for yourself and your child.
Your story, it shows us what humans are capable of. You endured, you healed. The lessons here about trust, boundaries, and inner strength, they're so important for all of us.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about trust in our own lives. How do we set those healthy boundaries? How do we be open and vulnerable without getting hurt? And how do we heal when things go wrong? Thank you for sharing your story. It's been an honor to go on this journey with you, to explore your story of survival and strength. We hope that this has given you some things to think about as you continue on your path.